Yo estaba sentado un perro, se cayó el perro y a la mierda el perro, y se va la vida.
Welcome to What Grinds My Gears by Bad Teachers with
Whoa!
Humps. How you doing, Humps?
Oh, how's it going, guys?
Yeah, doing good. So we have Humps in England, myself in the US, and we have another great guest today. His name is Dr. Clifford W. Love.
Yo!
Yes, and he is contacting us today from the lovely Caribbean nation of Trinidad and Tobago. And how you doing? Can I call you Cliff?
Hello, how are you guys? This is Clifford, but I prefer to be called Dr. Love.
Yeah, man, I tell you, it's the first time we've had a Dr. Love on here, man. I tell you, that's just ridiculous.
So
Anybody would think he has a made-up name, man.
Yeah, it almost sounds fake. Yeah, I mean, can I ask you? Because the quick backstory. So I've known Dr. Love since. I actually remember the day that we actually met Dr. Love. It was, God, was that 2010? I think it was 2010.
Yeah, it would have been 2010.
So just a quick backstory, Humps, for you as well. Like, so I'm working in Trinidad and Tobago as a lecturer at this university down there. I'm in my office, late evening. I would usually stay till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And this one guy walks in my office and he introduces himself, and he was a student at the time. And he says, "Hi, my name is Clifford, blah, blah, blah. I do this, and this." He was also working there too as a, what were you doing right then and there? You were some kind of,
I was like an assistant, like tutor. That's what they call it.
Yeah. So he wasn't my student. He was a different field. But anyway, long story short, that's how we met through that institution. Then we became friends, and then we've met in other places around the world too, like in Greece and the US, and he's a nice guy, bright guy.
I think maybe in Spain. Yeah, you and I were there at the same time, but we didn't meet.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Spain there too. And then similar story actually with Humps here. We worked together in England. So yeah. So it's funny because you're a different part of my life, Clifford, from Trinidad and Tobago, and Humps is also, another different part of my life in the UK. And the funny thing is that both places involve copious amounts of alcohol. So
My
here we
goodness, I tell you, man, the alcohol, the beer and the pizza in London, non-stop, mate.
Other Roman meats in Trinidad.
Spyro, how about you put on about 25 kilos, didn't you?
In Trinidad, the food is so good there, and you love Indian.
Yeah.
You love curry, Humps. I know this.
I do.
You would fall in love with the cuisine there. And as a matter of fact, maybe you have a Trini restaurant somewhere nearby you.
Man, I haven't checked. That's a good idea. Yeah.
I highly recommend it. Really good. So what we were thinking.
So anyway.
Yeah, we wanted to talk to you, Dr. Love, and talk to you about, you just finished your dissertation, your PhD, I think it was January. And go ahead, Stephen. Sorry.
Yeah, freshly minted. I'm only referring to myself in the third person ever since, Dr. Love. So Dr. Love has been really happy with his results, finishing his dissertation this January.
Oh, congratulations! What was it in, man? Something useful.
Come on, useful PhD. Is that a thing?
Yeah, that's what I wonder. That's what I'm wondering, man. You probably ended up working for some junk organization. Come on, man. So, what kind of PhD have you got? Which crappy organization do you work for that does nothing really for anyone in the world? Go.
So I got a crappy PhD in organizational psychology.
Oh my God!
And
Excuse me. How the hell did this guy get on this show? What the hell is going on? I mean, these guests are really going downhill, Spyro. Organizational Snoresville. God, sorry, man. I'm sorry, man. Dr. Love. Back to Dr. Love.
What did these guys even do?
Yeah, well, yeah, man. You probably work for the UN or for some shit like that.
Well, I did some consulting for them, the company I worked with. But
Okay.
it's, we consulted anyone actually. But yeah, the UN's been one of our clients before.
Oh, there I was. I was only just joking. I actually work for a nonsense organization. Fantastic. Sorry, man. So anyway, congratulations on your. What are your key findings in your PhD research from your research question?
So we did a lot of. Well, I did a lot on what I would call organizational justice, and what that had to do is it had to do with how people felt about working with other people who didn't want to work. So essentially, if you're working with someone and they're not pulling their weight, it really affects how you perform. And that's
wow.
That's something I really looked into.
Wow, that's interesting. Crikey, that's like for all of us every day, every minute of the day. Yeah. Let's take our take our guest from last week. Guy does nothing at all. The guy does nothing at all, and we all have to work with him. Sorry, man, I interrupted again.
Yeah, but that's the interesting part. We all come to work every day, and we're all sharing these tasks, and everyone's trying to do their part. And you're like, wait a minute, Spiros isn't doing shit, and he's getting the same pay. He's getting the same pay as I am.
Christ,
so you
man.
begin to think, maybe I need to do less, and that's what happens. You begin to tell yourself, maybe unconsciously, actually, I don't need to be working this hard because it's not really worth it. I mean, I put in all this effort.
Yeah, that's interesting, man.
It's really the same.
I had to carry his ass in London. I think it was bad enough then. Yeah, turning up late to the lectures, man. Seriously, screw you, man. I tell you. Right, that is quite an interesting piece of research. So basically, to sum up, we all hate people that do less than us, and then we try to do less.
Well, this is one scenario.
Lowest common denominator, right?
There are other scenarios too. There's sometimes the person who's doing less, they feel guilty. They feel like, oh man, I should be working harder. And sometimes, it pushes them to work a bit harder. But
really,
you find this, I would say, a lot less.
Wow, who are these people that?
You're in a group of overachievers, and you're like, oh man, I need to be pulling my weight. So it can go in the opposite direction as well.
Interesting.
A month went by before Andy said 2 words to somebody. As it turned out, that somebody was me.
Vagina boob.
So it's sort of like about social loafing within the workplace.
Well, for sure, social loafing is a part of it. But what I was really interested in is trying to understand, like, how does this affect performance? So, I mean, people loaf all the time, but does it keep back or stop the ones who are working from wanting to keep working?
Let me, if it's okay, let me read this. I just found this quote a couple of weeks ago, and I really like it. It's from Bill Gates. Tell me what you both think of this. This is from Bill Gates, right? CEO of Microsoft.
The one about finding the lazy person.
Yeah. Bill Gates once said he would always hire a lazy person to do a difficult job at Microsoft. Why? Because a lazy person will find an easy way to do it. Guys, that's me.
That's great.
Me.
But
that's,
I love that.
I like it too because I think that's me.
Tell us again,
Well,
man. For all the lazy,
tell
for all the
I knew
lazy people listening, they may not have heard it.
I knew the quote even before he said it, so you know this is one of my go-tos.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, because like I mean, you guys know me. I'm not a early bird. I enjoy my sleep, and I mean, I quite
No
say it
shit,
often.
man.
I'm quite lazy myself, but I'm proud of it. And you know, because I figure things will get done. But I love that quote there. So that's interesting that was. I mean, that wasn't your dissertation, but you know, more or less, you were kind of studying the science behind it, something like that.
Yeah, something like
Wow. I like it.
that. Just find a lazy man to do the
Okay.
job.
Actually, might have been my new motto. I quite like that. My new work attitude post lockdown. Good one.
Well, you know, I'm going to bring this up and tell me what you think, Dr. Love. So when I worked in Trinidad is a Caribbean nation, very laid back, as you can imagine, yada, 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 all that stuff. I had people come up to me in Trinidad, people that we worked with, and they would tell me, hey, man, don't work so hard. You're making the rest of us look bad. This is true, by the way. And I thought, well, I don't want my coworkers to not like me. So it would be common that, 12 noon, 1 o'clock, we'd go out for a Coors Light beer or something like that.
Nice.
You know, which is obviously not, definitely in North America, that doesn't happen. So I actually did less to sort of fit in. And I was happy. I was happy doing it too. I mean, what do you think of that? Like in relation to sort of, you seem to be an expert in this.
Well, two things. One, I can say for sure it's typical that you want to fit in and you want to feel like your social comparison group, which is like your colleagues at the time. You want to feel like you're doing just about what they're doing, or maybe you're an overachiever and you want to do more than what they're doing. But I think for any regular Joe, you're thinking to yourself, at least I'm doing what is required of me. Then they're coming up to you like, hey man, you're working too hard, which is interesting because it speaks a lot to what my research was on, except I did not get many cases where they actually asked someone to work less. Usually the people who are working less are thinking, I should pick up the pace, or I just ignore this person who's working more.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person who's working more usually says to the others, you guys are slackers, you should pick up the pace.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that it's like, hey, stop working so hard. So that's a real nice phenomenon.
Well, then, Stephen, with you. So when I went to England,
Yeah, man.
Correct me where I'm wrong here, Stephen. When I went to England, I started working there. Even before I met you, Stephen, what I realized there, the work culture there was, don't look like you're working too hard. Look cool and composed on the top of the surface, but below the surface, everything's churning. In other words, you're working hard, but it's not being shown. It shouldn't be shown. Like does that sound right? Is that how you would say it there? Because in the States, if they don't see you stressed out, you're not working hard enough. But that wasn't what I noticed in England.
No, not really. I mean, in English, it's like, well, you got a job. You get on with it. Some days you're stressed. Some days you're running around. Some days you're not. We don't talk about it too much. We just get on with the job at work. We might bitch and moan about it down the pub afterwards about how busy we are, but we just kind of get on with it. Especially in London, you just get on with it. You expect to be busy in London, and so no one really moans about it. So what? You're in the office at I don't know. Maybe you're in the office at 6 having breakfast, or 7 o'clock you're having breakfast. You get most of your work done before 9. Then between 9 and 5, when you're supposed to be working, you try to do shit all. And then after 5 o'clock, maybe you finish at 7 in the evening, and the last couple of hours you do a bit more work. It's easy. Yeah, we don't shout about how busy we are too much. Just crack on. Really?
Yeah. Actually, that's you described it pretty good. That people would have their breakfast early in the morning, like you said, and
yeah, man.
And then
much
between
prefer
9 and
that.
5, it was just sort of like kind of like social hour most, I mean.
Yeah, you chip away at the main stuff, 9 to 5. There are so many goddamn interruptions. You can't get anything done anyway. So, everybody wants a meeting, or every boss wants a report, or everybody wants a form filled out. It's like, oh, fuck you, man. So, you do the shit. You deal with all the interruptions during the day, which makes you very unproductive, and you do your classic amount of work in the morning. I used to get more done between 7 and 9, over cups of coffee and a bacon sarnie, and after work between 5 and 7 than I did during the hours of work. There's always some twat that wants to interrupt you. I can't stand it. So in education, you've always got some student, oh, can I get some support? Can I have some help? Can I disturb your lunchtime? No, fuck off, can you? Get out of my face, for Christ's sake. If you got a problem, student, and you want it dealt with, we'll deal with it in class. Don't waste my time outside. So, it's a bit like that, really. I mean, maybe I'm just oversimplifying it, but you know what I mean. God damn, you wouldn't believe the afternoon I've had with idiot students once again, man. I tell you, I'm going to buy a gun, man. I'm going to go all American on their ass if I'm not careful. So I tell you, man, you never know anything like it. Talk about disaster assessment. You want to be around me sometimes.
Oh, man, that's over the top. But it's interesting what you said, because some of the research that I've done, it talks about the fact that let's say you might be working with some other guys and they're loafing, they're slacking off. That's one type of what they call injustice. It's not fair. But then there's another type of injustice where you're working and the other guys are working as well, but the organization, it's not really giving you your due. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that one I get a lot, yeah.
And I think this one's typical, but the interesting part I wanted to mention is being able to complain actually helps. Like, as long as you can complain, and they call it voice, actually. As long as you can voice your concerns and you feel like they're paying attention to you, actually people are most likely to continue suffering, like going through this strife.
Oh, that's
if they can complain.
That's interesting, Clifford. Most of the time, they don't like you to complain. Most of the time, they're not frigging listening when you do. So you know what? Pay me the money, and I'll go for the first option. You pay me good money, and I'll short circuit my job as much as I can. I'll do the least for the maximum because you're not listening to me anyway. So screw you. I mean, I've just had a classic one this evening with a London university on the west side of London. You've never seen anything like it in your life. In terms of the lack of support for staff was clearly evident in this email, of which I've got a copy. Absolutely evident. The lack of support for the staff, you just wouldn't believe. So student X sends this horrendous email slagging off people, sends it to multiple departments, multiple individuals across the organization. Is rude as hell in there. He's making unsubstantiated claims. So I essentially went back and went, you twat. Yeah, how dare you be so rude towards the staff and everybody? The dean comes back and says, we don't support Stephen's comments at all. And I went back and I said, what a shame that you don't support my comments in relation to the absurd way this student put themselves. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly the problem in the UK with the education system right now. Yeah, but honestly, Clifford, you've never seen anything like it. And
they didn't have to go that way. They could have said, hey, no need to be like this, Stephen, but also, young man, you need to have some more respect for a faculty.
You know what? Exactly. He could have supported the fact that all I said in my email was, do you know what? You might be feeling disappointed, student, but this is no way to deal with it. This is no way to talk about it. And this is no way to try and engage with the professional staff, that in an email to everybody. And I got shot down by the dean. We don't support, these views are not the views of the organization. Wow. So what are you saying? That the organization and individuals won't stand up for themselves? When you should have seen the email, Clifford. It was a disgrace from the student. You know, and he shot me down just like that. And I said, you asshole.
You know what this is? This is a symptom of these higher, well, I would say most institutions in general,
Yeah.
trying to make sure that they're not on the wrong side of a negative PR campaign.
Oh God, yeah,
or
yeah.
a Twitter post or something like this.
Yeah, you know what? That's exactly right. They're so concerned about what the student says, and because the student's got too much power, they're so concerned about. They're so obsessed with that.
Outrage.
Yeah, right. But you know what, Clifford? If they'd done things properly in the first place, it never would have got to this anyway. So, you know, and God, I tell you what, my name was on that email from that student, and I was going to stand up for myself anyway, and others, but apparently I was not supposed to be standing up for other people, and I was not supposed to be, going back to, you know what, screw you. Anybody that speaks to me like that's going to get a mouthful. So, I was very polite. I was very diplomatic in my email, and I asked the student to apologise. You know what? And I just got shot down, and I thought, yeah, right, there's no way I'm working for you lot again. And I'll tell you what, I'm very, very close to blowing the whistle. I don't know what I could blow the whistle. Very close to tweeting about it.
But, you know, that's exactly what I was mentioning earlier. The fact that if you're not getting that support from the organization, it feels unfair.
It feels like you know what? Yeah, you're exactly right. All joking aside, you know what your studies and that. Yeah, I mean it's bang on the money when you look at I look at my own experience in relation to, you know, the science of what you've found out. It's like, yeah, I feel like that now. I feel aggrieved now. I want to go and beat someone around the head, you know, East London style. That's what I want to do now. God damn it.
It's even funny too, because there's another level of it, because I studied this in different let's say in different domains. People are even okay, as in you would be okay technically if they spoke to you in a way that made you feel like you were being supported. So according to the data there, it's like there's a certain way of interacting that's called like a fairness of procedure. And if they can interact in a way that you think like, well, maybe the result's not good, but at least they handled it like true champs and they supported me. You feel much better than than what they do.
Yeah, my contract has ended, funnily enough, and I didn't even need to see that email today. I didn't even need to respond, but I wanted to. So basically the result of it was I went back and I went, do you know what? I said to my boss lady, who's one removed from the dean, I said, do you know what? Take my email down, cancel me, remove me. My contract's ended. I don't need to see this shit when I log into emails. Just take me off the system, because if you keep me on the system and there's still access, I'm gonna say the same kind of shit again. So you know what I mean? But talk about exposing the lack of support for staff.
Yeah.
And there's no way he knew what particularly the issues were with this particular cohort. He's not been involved. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what I've done recently to be helpful or try and help. You know what I mean?
You know, something as simple as a phone call to you directly.
Absolutely.
Like, hey,
God,
have
that
you
would have
seen
been
this email? I'm gonna. Yeah, I just want to know, have you seen what the student has said? Something like that. I mean, you would have felt a lot.
Yeah, you know what? Exactly that, Clifford. If you bothered just to call me up and say, "Oh, hey, Steve, look, this kid's got whether or not the student has got a legitimate moan and groan, there's no way you put it like that. There's no way you put it in an email like that. There's no way you slag people off in that, or the system off in an email like that. This is a disgrace. If that's what they allow from students, do you know what? No wonder there's conflict in an organisation like that. Anyway, man, you're right. Anything else, I would have been.
You weren't at the end of your contract, and you had, tenure or something like this. you're just gonna say, forget about this. You're
Yeah.
gonna put in minimal effort. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like
Yeah, I do.
if
Yeah.
you're there and you've got to
It,
continue in this environment, yeah, it
it's
really affects.
such a shame. It's not the experience of my peers. Sorry, my experience of my peers. They've all been very supportive of me, and vice versa. And yeah, the dean wades in. You know what? I reminded him in an email, personal email to him. I said, "You employed me. I told you at the interview, I liked a candid conversation, and I'll get to the point." I didn't hear from him. I didn't expect to, but yeah, man, it's very interesting. The more we talk about your specialism and that, the more experience, just even today, just the experience of it. So yeah, if I'd stayed there, naturally I won't be asked back. Crikey, how would I want to work for that organisation? And if anybody's asking, it's not getting a recommendation from me. That's for sure. They can go to hell.
Dr. Clifford, can I ask you, so how do you handle a situation where you do feel underappreciated? How in your expertise, how do you effectively communicate the complaining?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head right there, Spears. The main means to deal with this is through communication. So, like I said to Steve before, if they had made a phone call, you see, there are two things we need to separate. The result. Let's say the result is either the student gets what he wants or he doesn't get what he wants. Yeah, these are your two results. Regardless of the student getting what he wants or not, if that dean had called and said, "Hey, Humps, what the hell is going on? I'm going to give this student what he wants, but he really had a bad attitude. I just wanted to touch base with you and let you know that." Cliff, sorry, Humps leaves the scenario feeling a lot better. He's like, you know what? These students are so stupid, but at least I had my support from my organization. Do you know what I mean? So something as simple as communication really makes a difference.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah,
it was very badly handled. This is the same guy that I had an interview, and he said nothing. He asked me nothing at the interview. He sat there, played on his phone for part of it, listened for part of it, and said nothing at all. It was the lady that conducted the interview. And I thought at the time, oh, that's a bit weird. That's a bit strange. And anyway, maybe not, man. Maybe it's fitting of a so-called dean's behaviour. And I tell you what, you arrogant twat, if you're listening, you better be. Yeah, I'm coming to get you, man. Yeah, okay. I'll give you some kind of communication. It won't be verbal. Go on.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. This is actually a really interesting topic because this is something that everyone can relate to anywhere in the world.
Yeah, man.
Wherever they work, just feeling underappreciated, how to effectively communicate.
Yeah.
But I want to switch gears here. If for the sake of time. Nice. No, I want to actually switch gears to. So you finished your dissertation, your PhD in general. You finished it in January, and I also wanted to see what were some of the difficulties you experienced. What were the hurdles you went through that maybe you thought were unique to you or your cohort? So, what was it like?
Difficulties. I'd say let's go with two. Let's go with two of the more serious difficulties. One, I'd say internal, and the other external, just for variety. So externally, man, I needed to publish before being given permission to defend the dissertation, because it's like you have to make a contribution to the scientific field. And that's not an easy task, Publications come with a lot of rejection. I mean, it's publication in a journal at a specific level, so it's not like just anywhere. And yeah, that is something that really, really took a long time. It took a lot of effort, a lot of backward and forward, and a lot of rejection from publication, from editors at different journals. It's probably one of the most stressful things that I've had to do in my life, maybe. And yeah, I would say externally that is a big challenge. Internally, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, internally, I'd say, there's a point, maybe 2 years before the end, I kind of felt like, actually, I've read all this stuff and I feel quite informed. Do I actually have to defend this thing? I mean, if it's all about knowledge, I've gained enough knowledge. I don't actually think I need to go through with this. And it's a hurdle that you have to get over where you decide, like, okay, I'm gonna go all the way. And it's really self-motivated. Anyone who's doing a PhD, hear me out. You've got to have that desire within you to go for it. And I'm going to be honest, I at some point I didn't have it. I kind of felt like, I really wanted to know more, and I know more now. I did some data collection. I got some results. It looks good. Yeah, I'm okay. I'm satisfied. I feel like I can move on with my life. And that's not the ideal case. What you want to do is go all the way to the end. You want to publish. You want to graduate. You want to go all the way.
Interesting. Stephen, what would you say? Because you're in the process as well, Stephen. What's some of the difficulties you're seeing or you're experiencing? Boredom, huh?
Boredom, man. I tell you, a PhD is boring. Writing research articles for peer-reviewed publications is not something I relish. I've done it twice. I've got 2 published articles so far. It's overcoming the boredom. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a certain amount of enjoyment, and I'm doing something. Mine is in industrial economics, but looks at the relationship between the economic relationship or the realized value between entrepreneurs and investors. That's my bag. And, so I'm doing something. I've got an interesting data set, which you wouldn't necessarily think to start with. So I'm using a TV show as a basis for my data. Data extraction is extraordinarily boring. And watching content and extracting, I don't know, 45. I've got 45 data points. So times 4. So I've got 180 data points to extract in every hour episode of content, and I've got 200 hours. So that's a lot of data points, but and I'm 167 hours in. I have 33 more hours of data extraction times about 2. I bet say it's about 200 data points per episode per hour. Yeah, man, it's a lot. But then what I've got is a data set that can be cut and sliced in trillions of different ways to look at. Massive. Yeah, exactly, right. So then it becomes a super valuable data set that's publishable for 10 or 15 years, because you can slice that data in all sorts of ways. So overcoming the boredom for me, lack of interest, I'm the kind of person, I can get all enthusiastic and then I lose interest in things. And, if I'm working in a team, I might be the ideas person. I need someone else to execute it through to the end. Being a completer finisher is not my strength. But, the challenge was finding a supervisor that I didn't knock heads with. So I'm actually in the middle of trying to change my university because the relationship with my supervisors was strained, to say the least. So, yeah, strained. It was very, very difficult. And so it was a relatively unproductive relationship, shall we say. So, I made the choice of the wrong organization. I probably should have left the organization earlier to do it somewhere else or change my supervisor sooner. But what I want to do is transfer the finishing of that PhD to a rather to one of the very, very good business schools in London, attached to a university, that is very, very good, where I've worked for 9 years.
Okay, so let's switch to another segment, and Dr. Love, we'd love to have you participate in it. It's called Fai di Puzzatora, which Dr. Love, I know you speak a little Greek. It basically means eat the dick now, so it's eat the dick segment. And so we'll just jump right into it. So you both, all three of us actually get to answer this, and you get two horrible scenarios, and you have to choose one. So here it is. The first scenario: for the rest of your life, while you drive a car, whether the car is your car or another car, as long as you're driving a car for the rest of your life till you die, the radio will always be playing George Michael's Last Christmas. You know, the Last Christmas, you gave me my heart. And it's not playing it low, it's not playing it loud, it's at medium sound.
I tell you what, man, just give me the other option. Whatever. I'll take the other option now.
Okay, all right.
I mean, I might take this option because I can use public transport. So.
Yeah.
Okay. This goes also for when you rent a car or you're driving. Let's say you're driving your girlfriend's car. Yeah. So anytime you drive a car, period. So now the other scenario is, for the rest of your life, 1 out of every 10 chairs you sit in breaks and collapses for the rest of your life. 1 out of every 10 chairs will break and collapse when you sit in it for the rest of your life. So that could be at your house, it could be at the library, it could be at your place of employment, an interview, it could be at church, wherever.
Oh, wow.
I tell you what, man.
That one.
That's the one I want. Yeah, I'll take that shit. That's actually funny. Listening to George Michael's Last Christmas bullshit, man. I can't be doing with that. But I'll take the chair breaking, man. I'm there.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take the chair breaking as well.
Yeah, man. You could make it 3 in 10.
Wow.
It's still preferable, right? You could make it every chair I ever sit on again. It's still preferable. In fact, I could be in the car, sitting on the car seat that could break, which is preferable to have to listen to George Michael. Come on, man. Brilliant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I agree with you guys. I'd rather go with the broken chair for the rest of my life.
Oh, crikey, yeah. Instead of some broken record. Yeah, I hear you. That's a good one, man. I like that one. Now, we've got unusually listeners to our 58 million listeners. Unusually, our guest wants to ask us a question. So, brace yourselves. So, Dr. Love, what is it you'd like to ask us?
Well, I thought for a second. On one hand, there's Spyros. You've got your PhD for a couple of years, haven't you?
Yeah, I think I finished it in 2007.
Yeah, so it's been a while. And then you're on the other end of this, Steve. You're still in the process, as long as things work out well, switching those institutions.
Surely.
So you're both sides of the spectrum, because I've just finished and I feel completely uninterested in what I've done. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my industrial psychology, and I've studied this, I would say, probably for the last 8 years. So it's not something that I'm just never going to do again. But I sometimes think, is it advisable that someone would sort of change their focus after doing a PhD, or would it be crazy for me to say, actually, I think I've studied enough of industrial psychology. I'm ready to move on to something else now.
Yeah, because I went through this as well.
Okay.
So my dissertation was on mega events, so the World Cup, the Olympics, things like that, and resonant perceptions of the mega event. So, for example, like what Londoners think of the 2012 Olympics. Now that it's done, and was it worth it? Blah blah blah. I got sick and tired of that stuff because for an entire year, more or less, you're doing your dissertation on it, and yeah, you become a subject expert in that area. And the last thing I wanted to do was more research in that area. And now actually, so even last year, I did some research on stress levels of Korean students. I was in Korea last year.
Wow.
I just want to do almost, not anything else, but really something else though, because I don't particularly like it. I'm burned out from it, or I was anyway.
Steve, you said you're gonna have a really rich data set, and I thought to myself, well, that's fantastic. I still have a data set. It's not as exciting as I think that one will be, but you're right. You're gonna have 10 years of work that you can do from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like, oh my God, do I even want to do 10 years of work?
I've
got 3 years of work, and I don't think I want to do my 3 years of work from
that's a very,
skills.
very good question. So what I'm thinking is I'll have a rich data set. I'll employ some research intern. I'll get that research intern to chop that data and create five articles a year. Yeah, they put my name first. They can have their name second, and I do no work at all. and so I'm still getting published, and someone's using the data set, but not me. They can use it on the principle that they put me as lead author every time. They can have second position every time, and that's fine, and we'll use it that way.
You've done all the heavy lifting.
Right, yeah, exactly. And then I focus on something else, because I think being a subject expert in a narrow field has limited advantage. And, maybe that's interesting for some speaking slots. Maybe it's interesting in terms of what you find. Is it interesting for teaching on a general marketing course at university? Maybe not, because it's very narrow. And those courses are not necessarily narrow. They're much broader, generally speaking, of course. So, yeah, it's a great question. No, I mean, I'm Dr. Love, I'm bored now. Another 10 years, man. I'm gonna be I'll be hanging from the rafters, man. What are you talking about? So, yeah, it's it's not a good long-term kind of prognosis, but I think it's an asset that needs to be sweated, and I can get something out of that asset as a data set in other ways, even if I don't have to be involved. That would be my plan.
So it's something.
There you go. Good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, but it's really a really personal question too, because it's something that I've felt sort of like, is this a bad idea that I move on from this? But now I feel for sure it's not unheard of.
No, I think there are so many interesting subjects and topics. My challenge is I'm interested in lots of things, and because there are lots of things to be interested in. And I would love to just knock that on the head and then move on, and do a research paper in another field, or apply the skill sets that I've learned and the knowledge I've got to another topic area, to something else, So, exactly. Yeah, and that's my kind of thinking. I have a fascination with artificial intelligence, technology in general, science, engineering. I have an early engineering background. And, I've not done anything with those things for a long time of significant note. I'd love to be able to just get back into some cool.
But I mean, how do you bridge that gap? How do you go from, let's imagine, doctor of economics and business economics to, I don't know, engineer? Do you just do it? I mean,
you just do it. I mean, you just do it. I mean, because I've got a background. I mean, for example, I've already explored the idea of doing another doctorate in, to go to university and do a doctorate in renewable energy technology. Already looked at it, already available if I want to do it. and and just go and switch disciplines because I'm interested in that field. I'm not qualified in that field, but I'm interested. I can understand difficult concepts, and there's loads of cool stuff to be researched in that sector. Hook up with someone else already, straight away. You got a couple of papers that could be published on a topic because the research skills are the same.
They're already there. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I like the.
And you like? Go ahead.
I was going to say I just like the idea of that. Anyway, to wrap up, Spyro.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. The one thing I would only add to that is that because you can never abandon it altogether. Your subject matter, whatever it is, you get a dissertation on. Because I did for several years, and it always comes back at you one way or the other through work, through let's say class, or it's on your CV. So you never really abandon it. So for example, Dr. Love, right now, I know you're taking a break. It's been 4 or 5 months since you finished, and that's good. So, but you get sucked in after a while again. You really do. You get sucked in again because it's just like it so well that it's kind of the path of least resistance. So like I brought up to you earlier about stress levels of Korean students. That's never going to be my background. That was just something I liked. But
yeah, interesting.
Yeah, your strength is your strength, and you always it's your path of least resistance. Whether we're talking about getting a job or publishing or whatever.
Yeah.
So, hey,
we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, Dr. Clifford W. Love. We want to thank you, man, for joining us.
It's been a pleasure, guys.
Yeah, man, our pleasure was all ours, Dr. Love. Just as soon as you came on and said your name was Dr. Love, that was pleasure enough, man. Don't worry.
Thank you for joining us. And hope
to all our listeners, to all our listeners, give them the web address, Spyro.
That's right. Please do give us comments, feedback at you could either email us, that is badteachervaginaboob@gmail.com. Again, badteachervaginaboob@gmail.com, or just leave a comment on under the YouTube video.
Yeah. Woo!
Excellent.
I'll catch you soon, people.
All right, guys. Take care.
Take care. See you. Thanks to our guests. You too, man. Bye-bye. 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 Bye-bye.